Hello, and welcome to the Futurum Tech Webcast. I'm Shelley Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Futurum Research, and today I'm joined by Sandrina Sieverdingbeck from Salzgitter and Stefan Weisenberger from SAP, and we are going to have a conversation about the drive for green steel. And I can promise you, we had a little bit of a prep call yesterday to talk about what's happening in the steel manufacturing industry, and there were things that I had no idea that, given my interest in and focus on sustainability, I walked away from really excited about. And I have a feeling you will as well. So with that, let's get started with our show. Sandrina, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Hi together. Nice to meet you today.
Absolutely. So I know that you are the head of strategy and corporate development at Salzgitter. Would you tell us a little bit about your role there?
Yes, of course. As head of strategy and corporate development, I'm a driver of industrial transformation at Salzgitter AG. The decarbonization project, Salzgitter, circular economy, and sustainable corporate management belong to my latest core topics. I started my career at Salzgitter AG in 2003 as project manager in the corporate group controlling. In 2012, I moved to the strategy and corporate development department at Salzgitter AG, which I'm heading since 2015. In the last 2 years, I was also leading the commercial management at Salzgitter program, which covers Salzgitter AG's transformation to a low-carbon steel industry. Since the beginning of last year, I'm also management director of Salzgitter AG subsidiary Deutsche Daimler Erz- und Metallunion, which is responsible for the group-wide recycling activities.
So, in essence, you have no small job.
Well, indeed.
Absolutely. Well, you are doing a lot of amazing things. Stefan, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm Stefan Weisenberger. I'm part of SAP. Within SAP, I'm responsible for one of the larger industries, mill products and mining, and that includes, of course, the steel industry. I know Salzgitter for very long. Actually, when I joined SAP 96, which is ages ago, I actually was working with colleagues from Salzgitter developing together the industry solution for metal trading and metal manufacturing. And I remember still being at the plant there. It was very impressive.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you both. So we are going to now talk a little bit about, it's no secret that the world over, we are navigating some significant business pressures, macroeconomic challenges, a drive for all businesses of all kinds, and of course the steel industry in particular, towards sustainability. And we've got demand from customers, we've got demand from stakeholders, we've got demand from employees. So this is a really, really important an important point in time. So Sandrina, if you would tell us a little bit about, what's driving the increased sustainability effort in your world, in your organization, and kind of what you're seeing in the industry.
Yeah. Well, the first contributing factor to an increased sustainability effort is our customer, of course.
Right.
In recent years, the demand for more sustainable company focus has become more evident.
Right.
Within Salzgitter AG, we are already covering multiple industries and, of course, their consumer branches. These include the automotive sector, the bottling machinery, steel trade, and as well as beams.
I see. And one thing I wanted to touch on, I know something that you are impacted by, of course, as we all are, government regulations and government requirements. And, we've got the commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement, UN sustainability goals, and all of these things have led to increased momentum, and especially for energy intensive industries like yours, right? So, one thing I'd love for you to touch on is the role that your employees are playing playing in this drive to sustainability? Because I know, so we've got customers, we've got government requirements and regulations, and we've also got employees. Talk with us a little bit about the role that they're playing there.
Yes, our employees are also an important driver of sustainability. Within the Salzgitter Group, we are seeing in a cultural change in which employees are showing a high degree of proactivity.
Yeah.
From the founding of an employee cooperative to finance a photovoltaic system to our trainees tree planting campaign in the Harz Mountains, you see, everywhere within our organization, we find encouragement for a sustainable business approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and of course, we've got financial markets, which are playing a big role right now. So, and that's going to continue. Stefan, you and your role at SAP, you work with other companies in multiple industries. Are there other pressures or specific regulations that you're hearing that are driving action as it relates to sustainability initiatives?
Well, yeah, that's actually quite a lot moving. Just
Yeah,
coming back from a conversation with another customer around that. It's actually, I mean, it depends on the material. I mean, I'm responsible for the packaging industry, just one example. And there, the whole topics of single-use plastic is a huge thing. You know how much ocean plastics are floating
right.
around. And one way to address this is to basically phase those out. And there are legislation in the EU and also in other countries that address just that. There's a UK plastic tax that is looking at that. So companies are basically, in a way, forced to report what kind of plastics they're using. And
Right.
and basically need to pay a tax on that. In a way, we also have that with carbon pricing. That is, of course, also a regulation that is affecting us in the steel industries and in others. And we have topics around green procurement, which are quite big. You have in the US, the Federal Buy Clean Act. You have in the EU, we have topics like green public procurement. You have green building codes. There are a number of things, and these affect different materials in different ways, but typically it's about the carbon footprints, about recycled content that you need to prove to actually play in a market.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. And it's not getting easier.
It is
It's
not,
getting easier.
Nor will it, right? I mean, there are
Mm.
some technology solutions that help along the way, but the reality of it is this is a complex field we're playing in, and I really don't expect it to get any easier. Okay, Sandrina, I think that we've mapped out the fact that there are massive pressures in all of this. And we also can see that Salzgitter has massive aspirations as well. And I know that it's your mission to be the company's mission to be a pioneer in sustainability and green steel. Green steel. That's so exciting. So tell us what this means. And I know this is a complex story, but tell us what this means, if you would.
Okay, yes. What means green steel? You have to know that we are currently producing each year here in our Salzgitter production site 4.5 million tons of steel. And we also eject 8 million tons of CO2 emissions. And these CO2 emissions we want to avoid in the future.
Right.
And therefore, we have already started in 2016 a SALCOS program. SALCOS stands for Salzgitter Low CO2 Steelmaking. And by this, we have completely to switch for the raw steel processing to another production process with different materials.
Right.
And that's a very intensive investment.
Right. Absolutely. So talk a little bit about these processes that you're going to implement. I think you've got it broken up into stages. Will you walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, we will implement the new SALCOS production process in 3 stages. In stage 1, 1 direct reduction plant and 1 electric arc furnace will be implemented, as well as 100 megawatt electrolyzer capacity for the production of hydrogen. This shall be done until end of 2025. So it's not a long time anymore. It's almost tomorrow.
Right.
When we are able to produce 1.7 million tons of green rolled steel, and we aim to reduce our scope 1 and 2 CO2 emissions by already 30% in total.
By 2025. That's impressive. That's very impressive. Okay, take us to stage 2.
Yes, stage number 2. We will implement a further direct reduction plant and a further electric arc furnace, as well further electrolyzer capacity for the production of hydrogen. And we will implement it in the same steel production capacity as stage 1. So we are able to produce almost 3.4 million tons of green steel until 2030. And by this, we are able to reduce more than 50% of our current CO2 emissions.
Okay. So, a little more than 6 years.
Yeah.
50%.
Further, until 2033, a further electric arc furnace will be implemented. By each stage, the corresponding blast furnace capacity will be shut down, and at the end, 4.5 million tons of raw steel will be produced in Salzgitter via a CO2-less production process. By running the new direct reduction plant with 100% hydrogen, we are able to reduce our CO2 emissions by 95%.
That's very impressive. Yesterday, one of the things your team shared with me is information about the deal that Salzgitter signed with BMW. And this deal is around producing low carbon steel in 2026. And talk with us a little bit, if you would, about this agreement with BMW and where you are in this transformation and the impact that that's having on Salzgitter now.
As the agreement is simply following, we provide to BMW since our new Cycles production process stage 1 has started with a serial delivery of green steel in big portions, not only small amounts, big portions. And of course, BMW also has some scrap from their production processes, and we already take this scrap today back from their location sites and bring it back into the production cycle of steel.
One thing, Sandrina, that became clear when I was talking with your team and preparing for this conversation is that the Salzgitter premise has it kind of become a large construction site. And so the existing processes continue, and this change is happening. Some refer to it as maybe open heart surgery. Here at Futurum, we call it building the plane as we're flying it. So I think either descriptor is fairly appropriate. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that's like? Actually doing the open heart surgery while business as usual is happening, but yet these massive transformational change is also happening.
Yes, as already taught, Salzgitter location is currently a large construction site. But transformation here does not mean only the implementation of new materials in our premise. Right. It's also the challenge of change in the supply chain. As to make it simple, we have to change coal by green electricity and hydrogen. Right. So we have to build new partnerships. Existing have to be set in the mind of transformation that rules for our suppliers as well as for our customers. Right. And our customers, like BMW, likely await the green steel. But to what conditions and in what amounts in the ramp-up phase? That's the question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
and true to the strategic motto, partnering for transformation, the Salzgitter organization has started last year this journey along its supply chain. We are aiming by this for circularity partnerships, following our vision, pioneering for circular solutions.
Right. So, what are you thinking will happen with Salzgitter flat steel in terms of the whole steel production plant?
Yes, we basically replace the whole steel production plant as already described. And
Okay.
yes, we need a lot of investments, 1.7 billion euro.
Right.
We get the support of we get some funding support that's necessary. And we are already in the midst of transformation to provide our customers, especially our core customers like BMW, as early as possible with green steel.
I see. So there are some visible changes taking place at Salzgitter. I know that the skyline has changed. I know things are happening within the organization. Walk us through a little bit of those changes, Sandrina, if you would.
Yes, we are doing steps, transformation steps since years. Yes, we started in 2017, for example, to build electrolyzer capacity. So we start together with our team the development process to understand better the production of hydrogen, to scale it in bigger amounts. And of course, our skyline has changed. We implemented wind power in our location site. And yes, so we are able already today to produce green electricity, not in that amount we need, but in smaller, yes, portions. And we are also preparing for our huge direct reduction plant. Yes, we have built a micro direct reduction plant to make R&D, yes, research and development, to learn about the best mix of hydrogen and natural gas, and to prepare on the best mix of the necessary raw materials we need therefore.
I see. And so one thing's for sure, there's a lot of work and development that's going on behind the scenes. I know that you're testing new technologies before you scale up and all of that sort of thing. And so you absolutely have a lot on your plate leading digital transformation initiatives here. Stefan, right? I would guess there's never a boring day, right? And never a day without its own set of challenges. Stefan, hello. Salzgitter is right in the middle of a critical cross-industry process. It impacts in a massive way the ability to reduce emissions. Can you talk with us a little bit about the front and the back end of this process, and starting with mining, and because I don't think when people think about their vehicles that they drive, right? Most of us aren't thinking about all that's involved, including beginning with mining that makes those vehicles happen. So will you talk with us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, and you said rightly, Salzgitter is right in the middle, meaning in the middle of a value chain that starts maybe somewhere in Australia or somewhere in Brazil, where iron ore is produced and then transported across the globe. And then we come to the point of steel making, and then we are producing car parts, and then comes the automotive manufacturer themselves. And even then, the value chain doesn't end, because the car will be in use. It will be maybe no longer run with a combustion engine, but with an electrical engine, and then it will be recycled at the end. So it's a very long supply chain, actually, that or value chain that we're looking at. And if you want to decarbonize the whole value chain, I discussed it this morning with a mining company sitting together, and now we're talking about steel. You can look from the mine upstream and actually see, how do I decarbonize anything coming downstream, and the automotive guys are looking in the other direction and basically looking downstream and what is Salzgitter and other metal companies supplying. So the interesting point is they are basically decarbonizing their usage by switching from gas to electrical, so they can bring this part of the footprint quite nicely down. So for them, a significant part now, if you look at the full life cycle of the car, is coming from the raw materials. So there's a much higher interest now into, on one side, the battery minerals, but of course also materials like glass and plastics and of course steel.
Right. Absolutely. So when you embark upon decarbonization efforts, what does it require companies to do? Where do you start when you're thinking about this?
Well, that's actually interesting because it depends a little bit on what you would like to achieve. What we've seen is that that there is, of course, a regulatory part. So you have your corporate footprint that you need to look into. They have you have the discussion about if you want to discuss with your customers about your product footprint, and you have the aspects of how do I actually share data and share information with the suppliers on one side and with the customers on the other side. So we are discussing that. We're engaged, for example, with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. They have something they call the Partnership for Carbon Transparency. Let's say basically addressing exactly this problem. How can two companies or more companies talk to each other and share information around sustainability? And of course, you want to standardize that so that you don't have to reinvent that every time. So it's a question about how do you calculate, how do you share, and how do you make that in a digital way, no longer with fax, in a flexible manner that is actually working.
Yeah,
it's a lot moving.
It is a lot of moving parts. I think it's a really important initiative, though. And I think the message here is that you don't have to go it alone. You know, it is today, I think that what we see here at Futurum is that, you know, smart strategic partnerships are the path forward, and be able to share data, share ideas, that sort of thing. I mean, that's really, I think, how we make this happen, as opposed to each company sort of reinventing the wheel along the way. That's not efficient in any way. So I think that organizations, partnerships like this are incredibly important.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's something you cannot solve by yourself.
Yeah.
And therefore it's important. And there are multiple standards evolving, and luckily they are developing in the same direction. So that makes it a little easier, at least for companies.
Yeah, that's great. So Sandrina, I know that, of course, as we've talked about, your transformation is in full progress. So I also have been involved in digital transformation initiatives over the course of the last decade. So I have firsthand experience, and I know that this does not come without challenges. Talk with us a little bit about just a few of the challenges you face in this process.
As first of all, the resources are certainly limited. So the implementation of transformation requires a different distribution, and new processes must be established, and we need to be well prepared for those. And of course, our team has also to do its normal work, of today. And in parallel, we have to prepare for transformation. It's quite a challenge.
It is.
And in this process, IT will be a well-supporting medium. It is also a chance for the transformation. Yes, and also to integrate a new IT generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's lots of balls in the air here. So let's talk, if we could, a little bit, Sandrina, about the infrastructure side, right? And, you know, how technology is actually playing a role in terms of supporting your journey to be more sustainable. And I know that, of course, involves some of the work that you're doing with SAP. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that partnership with SAP and how SAP is supporting you on your digital transformation journey at Salzgitter.
Yeah. Yes, we cherish a long-standing partnership with SAP. For us, digital transformation is the key to a more sustainable business.
Yeah.
A good example project is our corporate carbon footprint. With the help of SAP, we are globally collecting and analyzing group data concerning our CO2 emissions. We use this data set for our customers as well as reporting,
Yeah.
And an increasing number of customers is also asking about more data than just CO2 emissions. As a result, we are also collecting other energy and environmental key figures.
And one thing I will say that when it comes to customers and data, in my experience, when customers see a little bit of data, they get very excited and they want to see more data. So it sounds like you are experiencing just that. Right? And so I know all of this has led to something called maybe a product passport. Tell us about that, Sandrina.
Yes, that is right. It's a product passport.
Yeah. So what is a product passport?
So a product passport is an information set which contains all relevant information about the product, yes,
Okay.
and its life cycle.
Okay. Well, and so using sort of that product passport, customers can see sort of the environmental footprint of their product. Is that
But of
really
course,
what we're talking about? Great. You know, your
CO2
passport.
footprint, CO2 footprint, it's a
Yeah.
footprint of secondary raw materials.
Got it. Got it. All right. Now I would love to talk a little bit about circularity within Salzgitter. And I know that's something that you spend a lot of time thinking about. And I know that's been, a focus of a lot of your efforts, Sandrina. Can you tell us a little bit, share with us a little bit about how circularity is evolving within the organization?
Yeah. With steel, we have for circularity the best material because steel you can recycle every time per 100%. And steel scrap are our main topics in circularity right now.
Okay.
And we do face an increasing demand from our customers and regulators to include more secondary materials into our products. And so the steel production process can do it very well, yes, to especially our new Salzgitter production process can use more secondaries than before.
Well, that's great.
So far, we do not see any legal requirements for recycling thresholds, but that is surely only a matter of time now, we think. Frontrunners are already voicing out their demand of higher scrap content.
I see. So, Stefan, circularity. I know you think a lot about circularity on a daily basis. Talk with us a little bit about what other innovations you're seeing in the industry around circularity.
It actually just popped up in my mind thinking of that. I mean, one way is, of course, recycling steel. If you think of construction, actually, you have a step before where you would say if you build more modular, you can actually reuse modular components. You don't even have to melt them. You can even save more CO2 by doing that.
Right.
But of course, there are many other things. I mean, one element I mentioned before that we look at an entire value chain, and if you look at that, for example, for the automotive industries, you can become more circular if you know more about the product, if you know more about how it's being used.
Right.
And one of the works that we're doing is together with the Global Battery Alliance. It looks for example at what you do with an EV battery. You have its passport, how it's manufactured and what is actually inside. Then you have the time when it's in use, and you try to understand how good it is. It's still, can it still be used in its first usage, or does it
Right.
actually has to go maybe into a second usage, no longer in a car, but maybe as a electrical buffer or possibility to store more electricity in a house, for example, or in a fallback scenario. So there are ways where we say it helps to add a digital layer, digital information to the way how materials flow and how products exist. So yeah, that you then know how can I recycle that. That is a big element, and that goes actually. Product passport is an essential component, but it goes beyond. It actually comes to the point. Okay, how can I actually dismantle something? How can I make sure that everything is properly processed? We've seen that in construction, where we've been working with construction companies that wanted to prove that everything is being processed according to regulation, and they wanted to actually sell the service that they're processing it, and they wanted to reuse the materials. So there's a lot of things happening where if you play together, you can do beautiful things. In the automotive industry, there is an alliance, I would say, a network of companies that work together on circularity and more topics and how to exchange data around that. It's called Catena X. I'm not sure whether you heard of that. It's in Europe, a big discussion around everyone who supplies in the industry and basically creating like a digital network, an open ecosystem to exchange information, to enable better exchange of quality information, of demand information, and of course also sustainability and circularity information. And again, it's helpful to see there is multiple companies coming together in an alliance to solve a big problem together. And it's exciting. So we can actually drive a big difference there.
Yeah, it is very exciting. So what groups within Salzgitter are part of this effort, Sandrina?
We incorporate all our companies into the process today. Of course, some companies have a particularly larger footprint than others, but since we aim to become climate neutral along the entire value chain, we depend on the contribution of every company.
Right.
Every company of the Salzgitter Group. And we recently implemented the first group-wide Decap Award, in which our company submitted initiatives to reduce their CO2 emissions. We were able to record great participation, which shows the aspiration of all the individual companies contributing towards our sustainability target.
So the Decarb Awards, can you give us an example of one of the companies who entered this awards program?
Yes, some few words on our winner. Our winner is the Solar Cooperative of employees of one of our subsidiary. Staff members invest in a photovoltaic system on the roof of a production site of their company. And the company rents the system and uses the generated green electricity. This saves 194 tons CO2 emissions every year. And the employee-driven initiative shows the commitment for transformation on every level of our company.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yes, and the entry on second place is more technical. That's my second example. At the moment, steel slabs are separated by autogenous flame cutting in one of our processing sites. Replacing this process through the usage of cold circular saw can save 12,060 tons of CO2 emissions combined. And in addition, material efficiency is increased and economic savings are achieved on top of that. The initiative requires an investment at first, of course, but it pays for itself, improves quality, and contributes towards more sustainability.
Absolutely. Well, that is definitely more technical, but it's really exciting too.
Yeah.
You know, as we wrap the show, I'm thinking about I was on site at one of our clients' lab facilities, at their R&D facility, in the middle of last year. And the gentleman who led the facility was introducing himself to the group of visitors and kind of talking a little bit about his role within the organization. And one thing that he said that really resonated with me, he said, every day I feel like I'm surrounded by the best talent, the brightest individuals, people who are working every day to affect change. And they're very focused in the sustainability space, by the way. And he said, in no instance was it more apparent how fulfilling my job is than when I was talking with my 8-year-old son. And he was asking me, Daddy, what do you do when you go to work? And he said, I looked at my son and I said, I go to work every day and I try to make the world a better place. I try to save our planet. I try to make things more sustainable. And I feel like I'm really contributing something. And I walked away from that thinking, what a great thing to be able to tell your child or your family or friends or anybody about what it is you spend your efforts doing. And I think really, Sandrina, for you and your team, certainly for you, given your role, that's what you do too. You really work to drive these efforts forward. So one, I commend you for that. But I also think that this focus by Salzgitter in general can't help but attract a new generation of talent. I mean, I also have 17-year-old twin daughters who are juniors in high school. They're math and science nerds. They're trying to figure out, what they want to do, what they want to study at university and all of that sort of thing. And I know they're very interested in all things sustainability because they realize that, we have to change. So do you see the efforts that you're making, the commitment that you're making, the passion that you have for sustainability and transformation as it relates to sustainability at Salzgitter? Do you feel like that's helping you attract and retain talent, but attract new talent as well? What are your thoughts there?
Yes, first of all, I feel with you because I have also twins, 12-year-old, and they are also very interested in everything what is sustainable, and we're looking for a sustainable future. And yes, I'm sure it does contribute. Providing an environment in which young potentials are part of shaping the transformation is highly beneficial for both sides. Young generations desire to contribute towards a more sustainable future. We see it from our children, yes. And in our group, they have the opportunity to do so, the young people. We highly appreciate their commitment and motivation to face the upcoming challenges and drive our transformation.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and those challenges are significant and they are not getting any less significant over time, right? So to our viewing audience, to our listening audience, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I think this has been a fascinating conversation on the topic of sustainability and a look at what Salzgitter is doing in partnership with SAP and other organizations. And we look forward to continuing to follow this transformation.